So Chris, if you want to call the meeting to order and then we can launch into the election of officers.
All right, I will formally call the Budget Committee for the Hood River White Salmon Bridge Authority to order. First item is to elect a chair. Would anyone like to nominate themselves to be chair?
Somebody else?
Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
All right, thanks, Matt. I will second that nomination. We should do a vote now. All those in favor, raise your hands.
Aye.
Looks unanimous. Matt, the meeting is yours.
All right, great. Thanks, everybody. I guess straight on to point 3, discussion of the budget and budget message. I'm going to hand that over to Debbie.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'm not going to read the budget message. Hopefully everybody had a chance to read it. I do want to emphasize that this is required. It's a required 1-year snapshot, basically, of where the Bridge Authority is and what they're going to be spending money on this particular year. The Bridge Authority does have a project budget for the whole entire budget of the whole project. And that probably in general is a more useful management tool. But under Oregon law, this is required. And so we take a 1-year look at what we expect expenditures to be for the next year and come up with a budget of what is expected to be spent. And when you look at the budget, I think the amount under materials and services is probably a little more informative because this is kind of what the expectations are for some of these expenditures that you have in some ways a little more control over. Whereas the capital outlay I pull that directly from what they call the PCE, so the cost estimate that's done updated actually on a monthly basis. So I pulled this out of the April one, and then added a little bit of a cushion because again, you can underspend your budget, but if there's going to be any expenditures that exceed the budget, then we have to come back to the Bridge Authority and get authority to spend additional money. So I tried to make it easy enough that I'm not coming back going, you know what, we're going to be $10 over budget on office supplies. Can we get, an approval to spend an extra $10? I don't.
So are you're statutorily limited as to the size of corrections that you can make?
Yes, and you are statutorily limited to that. Although we can make some pretty big ones, it just takes additional advertising and all of that in order to do it. You have to do what's called a full supplemental budget, which requires notice of the meeting. It requires holding public hearings and additional publications in the newspaper about what or whatever your source. We use the Gorge newspaper as our primary and legal place where we post these things. So what I try to do is make it some kind of a management tool that we can use, but not to make it so restrictive that we're constantly coming back and asking for changes to the budget. And overall, I think it's pretty reasonable what has been put into the budget. There is about a $4 million contingency that is down there that can be added on to other areas or can be moved to other areas to be expended if there are some areas that come up that are going to require additional expenditures. At this point, it would probably be something unusual that would happen. This budget was prepared assuming that we would move forward with construction. And so it does have all the money for getting to the point where we can get our notice to proceed issued. If we don't get the BIP and don't have another source of funding at that point, we won't be spending this much money in these areas. But I did want to make sure that we had a budget that if we get our funding in place, that we can move forward and get this going. So that was kind of the goal of this budget, was to be a positive one in the sense that we hope that we're going to get our money and that we move forward with this bridge this year. Other than that, I really don't have a lot to say about the budget. I'd be happy to answer questions about it, though, if anyone has any questions.
Could you just give me a brief description on the financial advisors and legal costs, what we're getting for that?
Yeah, so the primary place where they come in is we've been talking about getting a TIFIA loan, even if it's not a TIFIA loan, we do have about $105 million gap in the current financing plan that we intend to fill with borrowing. And so we will be either going to the federal government asking for a TIFIA loan, or we'll be going out on the open market asking for someone to loan us that much money on this project. And in order to be set up to do that, there's a whole bunch of ducks that have to be in a row. And so it takes financial advisors, and the Bridge Authority's current financial advisors is PFM, which is really recognized in this industry. They do a lot of these projects. And then we also have to have the other big number in there is the traffic and revenues survey that has to be done and report. And we have CDM Smith as our contractor for that. And they are also very well known in this industry.
And which account is that? Financial advisors?
Financial advisors would be for PFM primarily. And then actually, that is both, isn't it? Yes, that is both. The CDM Smith and the PFM contracts are in there. And so the project management is specific items that HNTB provides for us for actually managing like the office and things like that. We have legal, which probably won't be that high even if we go to, but you never know what our legal how high that might be.
We got to do the contractor.
Right. And yes, that is right. That was where that number came from. And then the 350,000 for advocacy covers the three lobbying vendors.
Yeah.
And then also, I believe Dan Marr's contract comes out of that as well for advocacy.
Okay. And on these costs, we've made sure in the past that we're getting competitive rates for that. And
yes, these contracts were primarily, I think they were all competitively bid.
Yeah, we did go out and get the competitive bids from different firms. 2024,
okay.
2024, and then
yes.
We hired them from each state and then federal. So
and how long do the contracts run?
contract is up to 3 years, but we are renewing it on annual basis.
Okay, so you go out for competitive bids annually?
No, we have a 3-year maximum, but within the 3 years, we have an option to extend every year. So if we don't need them, we can terminate them.
Okay.
If we don't need them, or if we feel like they're not providing us the service that we need, if we feel like they're not performing, we can end their contract for non-performance.
Okay.
Yeah.
Didn't we just decided to renew the 3 contracts for 1 more year,
right?
Based on the fact that we're in a place in the lifetime of this project where we're kind of at a make or break in terms of getting the grants, and we're satisfied with the production we're getting from our consultants there. So we just agreed to renew all of them for a year in the same contract, same rate. 1 more year.
It's also very expensive to go out for competitive bids.
Yes, understood.
And so we always have that balancing act
of education and of a new event. I've got it all. I was just asking.
Yeah, and then of course we look at the invoices. The invoices are reviewed extensively in this organization, more than I've ever seen anywhere, because they do go to committees, and then staff looks at them first. And they do go to committees, and then they come to the full board, and then they come to my staff and me to actually, process the invoices and write the checks. So they get reviewed a lot before the check is actually written for the vendor.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Description.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Before we dig into any more discussion, I just want to make sure there's no public comment. Are there? I don't see anybody.
We do have to open it up for public comment. Do we have public? Let's see, Tracy is
Tracy, yeah.
I think the rest maybe.
Are there any members online looking for some public comment? Okay, perfect. Well, then we'll continue on with discussion items and any questions. So Debbie, please keep the floor.
Question, Debbie. Can you, so in Oregon, you publish an LB1, is that the form?
Yes.
At what level, what line items do we include in the LB1? At what level do we abstract the budget? Are they marked in this? Is it like the colored lines that are going to be the ones that are published in LB1, or what's going to actually appear in that?
It pretty much is the colored lines.
Okay.
This organization, because it's a single purpose organization, is much easier for
Right.
preparing the LB1. So the LB1 basically wants to know all the revenue that's coming in for an organization broken out into some really high level areas. And everything in here pretty much goes into the other line because there's grants and you don't get any property taxes. You don't really have fees for services or any of that kind of stuff. So it all pretty much falls into, I think there's a grants line and an other line. And so that's where all the revenue falls. And then the expenditures are broken out by the personnel services, materials and services, and capital outlay. And again, because you're a single purpose entity. And then the LB1 also generally has things like FTE, but you don't really, even though we talk about staff, when we talk about staff, they're contract staff. So they're primarily HNTD, and the Port of Hood River is primarily, when we talk about staff, that's who we're talking about. So the Bridge Authority itself doesn't have any FTEs at this time. They don't provide any payroll services to anyone. So that's what makes the LB1 for the Bridge Authority really easy compared to a city or a county or even the port. It's a lot more combining and figuring out what they want in each line item.
So the reason I ask about it is because the LB1 is the level at which it is determined whether an action we want to take to modify our expenses or revenues requires additional meetings, or whatever process is keyed into whether it changes a line that was published on the LB1.
Correct. Yes. If it's changing by more than 10%, I believe, then it has to go through an additional, more extensive process. Yep.
That's great. Any other questions for Debbie? All right. It seems as though we're rapidly approaching agenda item 6. If everyone's happy, it seems a very straightforward budget. I'd entertain a motion to approve this year's budget.
So moved.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I think Yanni seconded.
Yanni seconded. All right. That's great. Any further discussion we want to have before a vote? All right. Could I guess easier to say, is anyone opposed? All right. Seems to pass unanimously. That's great. We have passed the budget for 26-27. Is it that simple to just say meeting adjourned? Or I would entertain a motion to adjourn this year's meeting, I suppose.
Jerry, you can do it.
And just adjourn it. You're good.
Yeah.
All right.
You're the chair. You're
Great.
just adjourned.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.